A regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Tommy, you want to lead us in the pledge, please? If you'd remain standing for a moment, please. First of all, let's keep in our thoughts tonight all those folks in Alabama that lost their lives and their families as they try to recover from something like this. And of course, I'd like to also remember former Councilman Pete Nix, who passed away very recently. Heavenly Father, Luke's message is crystal clear. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Condemn no one, and you shall not be condemned. Forgive everyone, and you will be forgiven. And as much as you give, you will be given in return in multiple. Luke tells us not to look for the speck of sawdust in our neighbor's eye, but to work hard on removing the beam from our own eye first, and then we will be able to see clearly to help our neighbor. So, Lord, we ask tonight that you help us to see clearly the right path in leading our city of Pataskala to be the best it can be and to do it in your will. And we ask for this tonight in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Kathy, roll, please.
Carter. Walter.
Here.
Howe. Barstow.
Here.
Hayes.
Here.
Hicken.
Here.
Lee.
Okay, we have a quorum present tonight. First thing on the agenda is citizens' comments. I know some folks have been working all day long, so we'll put them at the top of our citizens' comments tonight. Chris, do you have some introductions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Can I go through for a minute? We've gone through a lot of new hires in the department. This is our entire systems team has been replaced. We've got John on the end, Trent, and Connor.
Hi there.
John's a family man coming from the railroad in Marysville. Connor here is coming from New Albany's garage, was a seasonal employee with New Albany. And Trent's a family man, was the distribution leader in Newark, and he's come to take over as the system superintendent for us. So,
Welcome.
well, take a second to
Congratulations.
introduce
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Glad
gentlemen.
to have you.
Thanks for coming in.
You guys got your speech?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, have a
See ya.
good evening.
Have a good night.
Okay, Mr. Grady. Mr. Sean Grady from Licking County EMA is here tonight to give us a little update and give us a chance to ask a few questions. Thanks for coming, sir. Sure you've had a long day, too. Just a name and address for the record, please.
Sean Grady, 12278 Blue Jay Road in Heath. I am the EMA and Regional 911 Director. So a couple of things that we've got going on. This Wednesday and Thursday, you will see our testing of the tornado sirens. We're going to send people out to all 57 sirens across the county. We're hoping to have them all done that day. This is a physical test that as the person gets to the siren, they will call back into the 911 center, request that the siren be activated, has to see the siren do a full cycle, so a full rotation, and then hear the actual high-low tones. And it's considered a successful test. Once we have that complete, the report back to the jurisdictions will be sent out as to what sirens work, what sirens don't work, et cetera. Our rain date would be Thursday, the 7th, and if we'll use that day also as an overflow day for us. The statewide tornado test is actually scheduled for March 20th at 9:50 a.m. March 20th at 9:50 a.m. And that is a signal coming to us from National Weather Service. Just as a reminder for everybody, we made a couple of changes to the tornado sirens a few years ago. Up until that point in time, we triggered the sirens countywide. We no longer do that. Our primary trigger is coming from the National Weather Service via a system that is called WeatherWarn, which is tied to our computer-aided dispatch in the 911 center. And as everybody has seen the polygons that National Weather puts out or the weather stations show on the map as to where that tornado warning is, as that box moves across the county, if a siren is in that box, the siren will activate. As sirens move out of that box, they will not activate. So they will run through their cycle, their whole 3-minute cycle. Our backup for that is we trigger countywide. We will be changing that probably within the next couple of months, probably about the same time that the new center goes active. That will be triggered by quadrant, which will do full press on that as well. We're probably going to break the county into 6 zones. One of the big issues there is we really am not big fans of triggering tornado sirens, tornado warning sirens in areas where it's sunny. And that happens a lot, especially for you guys, where you guys are impacted by weather here, but in the northeast part of the county, it's still sunny in summertime. That tends to happen, so I wanted to avoid that. We are still testing on the first Wednesday of every month at 12:15 p.m. And that is triggered as long as weather permits. If the weather is threatening, we will not test.
Is that countywide?
That is, yes, that is countywide.
Okay.
At this point, I'd open it up for questions.
Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty.
What's the condition of our sirens right now, Alan? Okay.
So we'll get a good report on Wednesday.
Mr. Barstow, you have a question?
Well, but your test coming up this week is to see if our sirens or any siren in the county will work on your signal from
911.
911. Okay,
That's primarily how they're activated.
right.
The tornado sirens are actually triggered by a DTMF tone being sent out over radio. There's only 3 different ways that they can be triggered by it in this county. One is by the 911 center manual, the other is by National Weather Service with that warning box, and the third location would be our current backup location, which is Heath PD.
Right.
That will change when we open up the new center. He will drop out as an activating location, and our current center will be our backup.
Okay.
So we'll be treated in the
Okay.
same system.
Okay. Is there any? You said there are 50 or 57.
57.
Is there any way that the city can assist by having someone? Do you need people to get out to the sites or anything? No, you're okay.
Not this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
We also make it available, I know we've worked with Alan in the past, if there's questions within a particular jurisdiction about their sirens, all we have to do is set up a time.
Okay.
And then we can.
Thanks. All right. Great. Thanks.
And I'm old school. I grew up hearing every Wednesday, Franklin County, rain or shine. Are you comfortable with once a month?
I am, and there's a reason for that. Every week, Franklin County, year-round. There's a reason for that as well, and I'll explain that in a second. Here in Licking County, the county does not own the sirens. When we did the partnership deals, and this is back before my time, it was all under the understanding that the individual jurisdictions would own their sirens. The county arranged for the grant, and the sirens go up, et cetera. As these sirens have gotten older, they are extremely hard to maintain. They're getting costly to maintain. So we switched to monthly, basically as a cost-saving measure, because these are electromechanical devices. It's a combination of both electronic cards and actually mechanical rotation. Without that mechanical rotation, we're only pushing the decibels out in about a 10-degree arc. Doesn't cover the 360. So the catch is that the more you test, the more they fail, especially as they get older, and it's costly. To give you an example, a typical siren has 4 siren drivers in it. Each siren driver is around $1,500. There's also a lot of electronic cards that go into the system. One of those costs quite a bit of money. If we have to go up and maintain, there's somebody who has to climb it. So you're looking at a fair amount of money invested in each particular siren to make sure that these things work. I would love to tell you that every jurisdiction takes the same attitude that Pataskala does. I would be lying. We still have sirens that failed 2 years ago, that have failed every year since when we do this. Jurisdictions just don't have the money. So, realizing this is an antiquated technology, these things are designed for outdoor warning. They are not designed to wake people up. If you happen to be fortunate enough to live close where it will wake you up, that's a wonderful thing. I live out on the east side of Heath. It's a snowball's chance that I'm going to be woken up by a siren. That's the reason that we invested 3-4 years ago now in the RAVE technology, which is the mass notification system, which is the wave of the future for these types of alerts. Rave is, currently all landlines are listed in it, but as we continue to advance, and I'll just to poll the council real quick, how many people still have landlines in your house that you actually know the number of? 'Cause I have a landline and I don't use it. I couldn't even tell you the number. Currently, 911, this has trended this way for the past couple of years. We're looking at about 75% of all inbound calls to 911 are cellular. So you're seeing fewer and fewer landline calls. And honestly, there'd be a lot fewer if it wasn't bundled with the services. So the Wave is these, Rave, these mass notification systems, Everbridge, Code Red, that sort of thing. You guys have one down here too as well?
I'm not sure.
Mass notification?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Believe so, no, we don't.
Somewhere, somebody told me that, but anyhow. But our system is available for your residents as well, and it's easy to sign. We actually just added an easier way to sign up where you can just text text the word LC weather to a certain number, and you'll get weather alerts through text, which we can provide that information and push it out to your residents.
That'd be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, be real good.
We're trying to get more and more, but we spend about $30,000 a year just in that system alone.
Yeah. I'll reach out to you and get that information and share it with the community.
Be happy to.
Well, I'm also hearing you say that we own our sirens, and they're getting antiquated, so that's a discussion for the rest of us someday, so thank you for that, and obviously we'll have some discussions. Any other questions for, yes?
Sure, I got a couple here. The first one is, when will the Heath backup fall off?
To be determined, that
Okay.
would be part of the negotiation with Heath.
As I understand it, one of the problems in the city is when you activate our sirens from your home base, whatever you want to call it, there seems to not be as big a problem as when they're activated or not activated from the backup site. I believe it's a software problem. And I guess my first question along those lines is that, the way you guys are going to test all 57 coming from your home base, are you testing all 57 coming from Heath?
Not currently.
Okay, so,
That actually, there's a long story behind that as well. We're required by the ORC to have a 911 plan. The 911 plan was not really maintained by my predecessor. So when we started doing, getting everything, all of our ducks in a row about 3 years or so ago, realized this. Back in I think it was the 1999 plan, there was a clause in there that Heath had signed on as our backup, and we were to provide, essentially pay for all of their services. Well, when they built the current center back in 2014, they changed all the software. Never bothered to do a deal with Heath to upgrade the software. So we're basically looking at two different types of software. So that impacted about a dozen sirens across the county.
that was my next question, so.
And that's a rough number. It could be 10, could be 12, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. And it has to do with the make and model and how old they are. So that was determined at that point in time, considering that we're required by the state to have a viable backup. Taking our new center that we're building has 20 seats in it. Heath PD has 1. So using that as a backup is kind of a falsehood. We're basically stuffing a lot of stuff into a very, very small piece of pie. That was one of the reasons that when we realized that the current center had some structural issues in the back half of the building, we wanted to address it and make it so we not only build a new center that will cover all of our expansion possibilities, but it also would give us the potential to have a true backup. 911s, we're not in a position of just packing up our stuff and relocating somewhere else.
Sure.
We have to actually build it in parallel. So that's what we've done. We're hoping to be operational sometime, probably about the beginning of June. So everything that we did at this new center is actually in parallel completely with the old center. So the old center, as a backup, will be able to trigger all sirens in the county.
Out of curiosity, first of all, let me say thank you for coming,
Oh, no
because
problem.
I forgot to do that. Out of curiosity, they're not right next to each other, are they?
Oh, no.
Good, okay. I figured that would defeat the purpose of an emergency backup center, so.
When I went through my interview to come here, not wanting to risk ticking off the people that were going to hire me, I did bring up the fact that I've got a 911 center located next to the South Fork of the Licking River and a hazardous material rail line. But as it was said to me, it was a state-owned building that was given to us.
Yep.
We all get it. address, what we've done with the news center is we're actually located in the Port Authority. We've actually increased our capabilities quite a bit. So not only in size, but also in power. We're on two separate substations, and we've got a full-blown generator backup now for the entire facility. Co-locating an EMA with that location.
Good. I know I've seen you at fire station staged emergencies, so it's good to see you again. Another question that I have is when you talk about the RAVE system, you said all landlines are automatically enrolled. The last tornado warning we had, I don't think my house got called. I was there. Is that what they do? My landline didn't ring.
Send me that number. I'll give
Okay.
you my card.
I could be wrong, so you never know.
Possible, but yes, all landlines should be in, and I guarantee you, and what we do is we basically take the landlines that we have on record for 911. We do this like every 3 months and push those. So as new landlines come on, they get pushed into the system. The bad part of that is that we tend to see a lot of complaints from businesses because their PBX systems will get overwhelmed. If they've got 60 phone lines, they get 60 calls.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like it. So we have to work with individual businesses every time we do the upgrade to take their numbers back out. It's basically a data dump.
Do you foresee a time when Licking County EMA moves to no support for the sirens?
As technology advances, let me put it this way. We're no longer seeing grants from the state or from the federal side to put more tornado sirens up. We're not considered to be in a hotbed of tornado activity, but we just don't see it. Granted, we're at the tail end of Tornado Alley, and
Right.
we will see zeros, ones, maybe a two, and then something like what happened in Xenia in the early 70s is a
78.
It's not like what happened in Alabama last night. We don't see that, thank God. It's not our biggest risk by far. Ours tends to be flooding here in this part. What will probably spell the doom for a number of our sirens will be the individual jurisdictions not being able to maintain them. Honestly, we're going to come up to a decision 57 times because as the manufacturers stop supporting those particular sirens and that level of equipment that's out there, jurisdictions will have to make a decision, do they want to update? These are not cheap. As I said, each siren driver is $1,500. And you've got 4 siren drivers in a siren, and they're all designed, if they're all operating at peak efficiency, we're putting out about 120 decibels right at the base of the siren. And you got to remember, these things are traveling in a 360-degree arc, so you're getting that high-low as it's traveling. If one siren driver drops out, you might not know it. The only way you'd be able to tell is the decibel level gets a little lower, a little less. Second siren driver drops out. So typically when they go silent, it's because all 4 have dropped out. Because they haven't. But we're not going out with sound decibel meters to make sure that that takes time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're really looking at it's a layman's way of testing. Do these things at least put out noise? Are they operational?
Are they going around in circles or are they making noise?
And we weren't even doing that. This agency didn't do that up until this will be our 3rd season because we saw the need to do it.
I think one of the reasons that we asked that you come in tonight was from a individual council perspective, several of us, all of us, have asked questions of the administration thinking, why in the world do we have a tornado siren that's not working? I believe that the administration has done their part to make sure that they're up and running. Like one of my concerns is kind of like that, the ones that we have that Heath can't activate. And that's a concern that I have for our citizens. I still think there are a lot of citizens in Pataskala that expect that those tornado sirens are going off and it's going to warn them of what's coming.
That's not uncommon nationwide.
And afterwards, and this is just my little side note, I agree with you that flooding is probably the greatest hazard in this area of the country, but it only takes one, and afterwards, if it turns out some sirens weren't on, it's going to be terrible.
I absolutely agree with you.
And I believe that from our previous discussions. So
We looked at, after last year's test, and we basically, I think the year before we saw 7 sirens. Last year I think we saw 8 sirens. It didn't work. There's a couple of those that were the same from the year before, in year 2, same as year 3. And and I have no indication that they were ever touched or fixed by the individual jurisdiction. It was not you guys. We looked at Franklin County's model, and Franklin County did it right, and they did it right from when they first started putting tornado sirens in. What they did was they decided to charge individual jurisdictions $1,000, I think it was $750 or $1,000 per siren per year. And EMA in Franklin County would take care of the sirens, maintain the sirens, use that fund to maintain existing only. They didn't use that fund to put up new ones. So what that did, and they've got over 200 sirens. So what that did was that enabled them to hire somebody that's sole job was to maintain these systems, work with the electronics, make sure that this stuff worked. We didn't do that. Licking County went a different direction a long time ago, where the jurisdictions owned them. So we had B&C Communications, which I think is the contractor you guys have used, go out and do a survey, sirens countywide. And the estimate that came back countywide was that it would take probably $80,000 just to get these things back to whole. And we still have to deal with the age issue. I brought it up to the commissioners, and it was like, there's no money in the budget to do $80,000 to get these things back up. And that's if we were able to do a deal with the individual jurisdictions for that kind of money. Make sure that the program could go forward. So that thing kind of died an early death after we did that initial work. We weren't expecting it to be that much money. I was kind of thinking somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 30,000, and that might be something we could fund out of some of our grant money. 80 was way over our budget. There's really not a good answer. It's a long-term problem, and I definitely can see as over the course of, let's say, the next 20 years, we will not have 57 sirens. I can pretty much guarantee you that. We'll probably be down somewhere in the 30s. As they get older and get older, the jurisdictions will make a decision.
I've been dominating time, so I'll let my other
Great
council people.
questions, though.
Thanks.
I just had one quick question. It's going to kind of piggyback on Mr. Hickens. I guess our question, or what I understood of our concerns were, if, and I certainly understand your point about the more you test them, the more wear and tear you have on them. But if we wanted to test them, if this jurisdiction wanted to test their own weekly, if we wanted to, is that possible to do?
Could do that. The only thing that I would ask, and we have to schedule it wisely.
Sure.
It's not our primary role at 911 to test sirens. We can do it. We just would have, your folks would have to go out and coordinate that with 911.
I think that was one of our base questions was, if we chose to do that, how do we go about making sure we can test them? So we understood that there was a siren that had a battery go bad. Knowing that isn't something that is either the drivers have gone bad or whatever. We should know if the batteries are bad. We should know that, and if we have to test them weekly to go in and find that out, I think that that's appropriate.
Alan and I have had this conversation. We just recently had this conversation. But what I would recommend is that you reach out to one of the vendors that service them. There's only a couple of vendors that do this, and put a service contract in place where you're getting them looked at and touched once each year. That's going to minimize your risk of failures. Now, to your point about batteries, as an industry standard, you're replacing them in 4 years, regardless if they're still working or not. You get them out of there and you replace them because they tend to have a life where it's a cliff and they need to go. Siren drivers, but they would at least give you an option then at that point to give you a heads up as to what maintenance is coming. We've recommended this to any jurisdiction that we've had these conversations with. I don't know many that have decided to do it. I don't know what the cost is. You'd have to reach out.
Okay, great. That's great advice. Thank you.
Anything, Suzanne?
No, very helpful.
And I appreciate you coming and helping us, and I thank you now for also helping us with when our fireworks are here, coming out to help us. And yeah, this has been very important to all of us, including myself, because I feel that even though the technology is probably going to surpass it at some point, it's still a piece of the pie that can actually help somebody. So, and we're covering 30 square miles, so we're pretty big. So, okay. Anything else for Mr. Grady?
No, thank you.
Well, just since I'm here, does any of the public have a question for me while we're here? That's appropriate.
Anybody in the public have any question? I think we've covered just about everything. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. So, thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sean.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
And then before we go on to citizens' comments, I have a proclamation tonight. Jason, you want to bring that beautiful daughter up here with you? Come March, folks, so it's Developmental Disabilities Month, so we always do a proclamation for these folks. Did you take a picture tonight?
Come over here and go this way.
Still got that little dog card? All right, very good. She's got our canine dog card there.
You're welcome.
Maybe you could sign that. Sure. Working on Craigslist. Okay.
I highly doubt it.
Responsibilities and privileges as the mayor of Pataskala to recognize people and events of outstanding worthiness. Licking County has a long history of supporting people with disabilities as they pursue education, employment, and community connections. People with disabilities have contributed to the city of Pataskala in immeasurable ways as neighbors, co-workers, students, and friends. They volunteer in our community, advocate for change, and their voices and perspectives shape the identity of the city of Pataskala that we live in today. As residents of Pataskala, it is important to build on our history of inclusion and work toward a future free of the limits, barriers, and preconceptions that could affect people with disabilities as they pursue what is important to them. Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities supports people with developmental disabilities and their families, connecting them with the resources they need to plan for the future. So here's the formal stuff, okay? Whereas now, therefore, I, Michael W. Compton, Mayor of the City of Pataskala, Ohio, do hereby proclaim March 2019 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Thank you, sir.
It's precious.
Yes, you can.
Which reminds me of Claire. when I was out.
She sure does.
And Jason, I didn't introduce, so introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Jason Umstadt, I'm the Superintendent and Chief Executive Officer for the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Address, the board address is 116 North 22nd Street in Newark. So just to give you some facts about the Board of Developmental Disabilities here in our county, last year we served a little over 1,700 people and their families here in the county. And what sets us apart from other entities, and it's not really a competition, but just so people understand, when people with developmental disabilities typically come into our system, it's usually from birth, and then they're with us throughout their entire lifespan. So it's not something that we see someone for a month or two. Usually we see them until they're no longer with us. We usually see an increase from birth to about age 5, and when the child starts school, then the school system's, typically kicks in. We do some things for the summer months when the students are out of school for their families and for the individual. And then as they graduate, we start to see an increase in that. We have Project Search, which is going on and has been very successful the last couple of years with Licking Memorial Hospital, and we're in the process of creating another Project Search, which is a work-related internship for high school students before they graduate. We're working on a second one at the Beauty Park in New Albany. Over the past 10 years, we've seen a little over an increase of 40% as far as growth within the number of people that we support. And as probably no surprise to all of you, we're seeing a lot of that growth happen in the western side of the county. With that said, we're in the midst of completing a major renovation of our administration building. You've probably read about that, which we should be back in the next couple months. And our next projects include a home to support youth in crisis, which is another huge demand that we're starting to see on our system. In addition to that, as I said, with the population growth being on the western side of the county, it is very possible that in the next couple of years we will probably look to open a satellite office to increase accessibility for the people we support and their families. And it's very possible that we'll look at Pataskala as the home of that satellite office. And that's about it for today. We've got lots of things we could talk to you about, but I know you have a lot of business. We really, truly appreciate the support we receive from the city of Pataskala and from council. So thank you very much.
Well, we're glad you're a resident. Thank you for coming. And you got a future kindergartner there?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. All right.
Mr. Mayor, could I get a picture of the two of you with the proclamation?
Sure.
You were so speedy, I didn't catch it.
Sorry.
And I would hate to miss it.
Yeah, like I need another photo op. Move on to citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Hopefully you've signed in, and I'll need your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on this first round of citizens' comments.
Hi, I'm Connie Klima, P.O. Box 991, Patasko, Ohio. I'm here speaking on behalf of NBR and the Hunters Crossing development proposed on Refugee Road. I'm speaking to you tonight because we had our public hearing at the last meeting, and as we reported then, this development has gone through many changes as we went through the Planning Commission route. Not only a reduction in the number of units from 293 to 223, but also a basic exchange of single-family houses to more empty nester style product, meaning we only have 79 single-family to 144 lifestyle product that is basically marketed to people without children. As we've gone through the process, one major concern that has come up through the Planning Commission and also with the council members was the traffic study, which shows that while we have 2 access points and do not need any traffic improvements, that in the surrounding area, most importantly the Mink Refugee Road intersection, close to the project, currently needs improvements. As you know, your code does not require an impact fee for developers, at least not yet, but it's been contemplated and was discussed at the meetings with the Planning Commission and also with Alan in our private meetings. Given the concerns that are there with that intersection and the fact that Mink Road is used quite a bit, as a council member said last week, as a north-south corridor there, and given the fact that this development obviously will be adding certain traffic impacts to that area, we discussed this matter with Alan this past week and said, while you don't have impact fees, what would be the formula for creating one, an impact fee for a development such as this, for off-site improvements? And after discussion with Alan, and the percentage basically that would be required of this type of a development, it was determined a certain fee that would be there that could be paid by the developer for future use on that type of an intersection. I'm here tonight to let you know that NBR, my client, is willing to make that payment if, in fact, this zoning is approved. So that payment will be probably one of the first of your impact fees that's not required but would be given. That would go toward their percentage of the share of that intersection. In addition, it was another concern that if we do get the divergence from planting the number of street trees because of driveway access points, that if we would give the excess of trees that we would be not planting to the city so you could place them and plant them where you would like to have them in your parks, which we estimate to be around 50. I don't know the exact number. That is another thing that my client would be happy to also confirm that they will do. And last but not least, is the entry sign, which we were asking a divergence for, was asked if we could make it more in style with the neighborhood, farm style and height, that type of thing. And my clients have no problem with that also. That's my public comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Angel King, 134 Old Bay Drive, Pataskala, Ohio. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Licking Heights. I'm here on behalf of the district and Dr. Wagner, who cannot be here tonight. And he just wanted to remind council, as he reiterated in a letter that he sent last week and at the meeting prior, that the district is not in support of Hunters Crossing as it currently stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Sir? Don't get shy on me now.
I'm Dan Bauer, 287 Summit Glen Road. I was here last week and I heard Ms. Klima speak about this development, which is near my home. And at that time I spoke about the negative effect I thought it would have on the Licking Heights School District. I have heard nothing in regard to any changes that would be for the benefit of the school district. So I encourage you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, and introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion and roll.
Walter,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Short list. Very good. Consent agenda passes. On to reports, I just have a couple of quick things. BJ had to remind me it's daylight savings time already, so this Saturday night, turn those clocks, spring forward. I'm having discussions with administration and also with the police chief, and I wanted to let council know we're starting to plan for our police station grand opening. And as we looked at our master calendar today, it's filling up quickly. We have tentatively picked May 18th. That's a Saturday from 10 to 2. And if you folks let me know if that's going to work with you. That's, like I said, pickings were kind of slim on everything that's happening in the city. So just throwing that out there. If there's any major issues, please let me know as soon as possible. The chief will be working with our officers and making sure that that's going to work for everybody. And I'll obviously give you some more details as we go, but I'm just throwing that date out there. And you'll see on your desk, and I also have some on the table, if anybody in the audience is interested. We're having our Safe Surrender Day. If you've got some warrants and you want to get them cleared up, I know you have one, and no, I'm just teasing. You can come in here and we'll clear it all up. You won't get arrested, and we can make you sleep a little easier at night. And that's going to be April 6th, and there are flyers on the table over there. So, Mr. Barstow, what do you got for me?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in conjunction with the safe surrender, I think that's a great idea. That's a good way to clear up some of that stuff. And obviously, these are only warrants from mayor's court, so we can't handle things from other courts. But I would encourage the administration to look at the BMV website, because the BMV right now has a amnesty program for certain folks who have licenses. Chief, you may be aware of this, who have licenses suspended or fines that are owed to the BMV with their crazy, insane system that they have that keeps hardworking people from getting their license back. And I'll get off my soapbox, but that's what it does. But there's an amnesty program, so I would encourage to maybe try to link this to the best we can if we have folks come in, because if they have a warrant, it's for a traffic case, they have a warrant block, they're going to, so maybe we can start resolving some of these issues that way, or at least helping people to get those licenses back in order. That's all I have.
I'll work with the clerk and Kip, and we'll try to make sure that's, because, yeah, it's just a revolving door if you don't.
It is. Yeah, the BMV has on their website, they have who's out. Not everyone is eligible, but there are a lot of people are, so that's a good thing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barstow. Mr. Zetz?
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. King?
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a couple items this evening. First of all, I just want to say welcome to the utility staff. I know they took off, but they've been great additions to the department and have jumped right in, and it's been good to get to know them. The EMA notification for residents that Mr. Grady mentioned, I will reach out to him and get that information, and we will publicize that in the community, all the different ways that we have to do it, so we can get that out. During committee reports this evening, or during his report this evening, Alan's going to give a report on last Monday's street committee meeting. In Mel's absence, she asked if he'd be willing to do that, and he is. Wednesday through Friday of this week, I will be at the Ohio City Management Association conference. And the last thing that I have is an update on Main Street. I have said to some of you, I've asked AEP, last week I gave them 2 weeks. I said I need an answer in 2 weeks. Gave them a call today knowing that we had council meeting tonight to see what update I could get from them. It's not as positive as I was hoping I would get. What I have been told is that the project has been reassigned within the engineering group. and they are currently looking at ways to serve the properties from the rear alley. The technician will be out in the field tomorrow, and I told them to let me know when they would be there, and I would certainly meet them on site. I asked if we are still able to meet that 2-week notice, and they said that they think that is reasonable. So I will continue to pursue this with AEP, let you know what I hear tomorrow from meeting with the technician, and provide weekly updates to council, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is it just the 2 properties?
What's that?
Is it just the 2
It is.
properties we need from the rear?
Mhm.
Anything for yes, sir.
Yeah, BJ, when you get a moment, if you'll text me who the technician is.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I will, yeah. When I meet him tomorrow, I'll let you know. That's great, thank you.
Mr. Hicken?
BJ, can you give me some clarification? When you say 2 weeks, can they meet their 2 weeks? And they still think that can be met. Is that 2 weeks to tell us what their plan is?
Yes.
And it could go, so their plan could be, well, we'll have this done by December 1st?
No, 2 weeks is to know whether or not they can be served from the back and how they will be served from the back. And at that point, we would be ready to begin construction.
Looking past that, what are the other options if they say they can't be served from the back?
That I don't know. I'd have to wait to see what they say.
And then my follow-up question to that would be, if they can be served from the back, what do you think the time frame is for that happening? Because that's AEP's schedule,
Right.
but and I don't know if you can give me an idea. Maybe
It would have to be when the ones along the street when the poles along the street are taken down, because they will be disconnected at that time. So it'd have to be as part of, as the other houses are being hooked up from the underground, it would have to happen in that same period of time.
And that's not on us.
No.
This is a
Yeah,
shot.
hang on a second.
Go ahead.
Mr. Barstow, you have anything?
No,
Okay.
I'm just listening to the
I know.
onion being peeled back.
I know. Mr. Walther?
I was just going to add, Tim, the benefit from coming from the backside, from the alley area, is that those would be aerial. So they're going from an aerial lead to an aerial lead.
Sure.
So that, I would think,
True.
that's why I'd like to at least have a conversation with the technician, because I would believe that would be a very easy thing to accomplish.
Yeah.
I would
Nothing's
think
ever
the
easy for AEP,
Yeah,
but it should be
I
easier.
don't want to take a
of-
shot at them when they're not here,
Yeah.
but I would agree with that. And
Go ahead.
Well, it should be easier because they're not going to have to change
Exactly.
much.
Aerial to
in-
aerial is much
Yeah.
easier. That's
Yeah.
correct. I have a different question for BJ.
Sure.
BJ, I just want to ask again, if I could, budget for the police station.
We're working to reconcile all the change orders,
If
and I
you
will
get
have that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate
Yeah.
it.
We met a couple weeks ago to go over all the change orders, reconcile those, and we're working to do that and certainly get that out to you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll have that to you this week.
Anything else for BJ? And I guess I'll just chime in, since you mentioned Mr. Grady, it's probably time for administration and Alan. I'd hate to pile more work on you, but I guess we need to see how old our sirens are and how much we're pumping into them and
I'd like to go one step further. He mentioned a service that can do a weekly or at least do a yearly analysis of them. That's what I would hope we can get that proposal and have that to evaluate as soon as possible. I mean,
That
the
company
disaster that happened last night, we can't have that happen. We have to be
Amen.
prepared for it.
that company we work with
Nothing.
just comes out and helps us when we need them.
It's BCI, same company that he mentioned.
Maybe we could get it on a contract to,
Yeah,
I
we'll
think it's
talk
important.
to him about getting a service agreement.
I couldn't agree more, because it doesn't happen till it does.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the wave of the future, though, I think, is cell phone, computer, smartphone notification. I mean, that's I think the Weather Channel, I think, has an app, and it'll blare when something happens.
I have this
Except for the
this old
folks that
school
don't.
thing. It's a radio. It's a weather radar. It comes on when those happen. I mean, they're
Right.
$20.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's other ways of doing this, but I think from the city's point of view,
No,
we need to be prepared to say that our sirens worked and we did everything we could
No, I
to
agree.
make sure they worked.
I agree.
I don't know,
Notification
I would
pop.
say it is quite a loud notification. I owned one, but every time there was a tornado warning in Adams County,
Yeah.
it would go boo, and scare the tar out of me and my wife and my
What
dogs.
did it do?
It does.
So,
Does it go woo?
It was a lot louder than that. Trust me, I'm saving everybody's
This was
ears.
like a party one.
Okay. Anything else for BJ? Mr. Nicholson?
Mayor, you have my report. We migrated our server for accounting stuff. It's now cloud-based, so combination of, we were looking at probably 20 grand to upgrade the server, 5-year-old server. The nice thing is now that it's out of this building, so if we have a leak, storm, surge, whatever, it's off-site and we can access it from anywhere, which is kind of nice. So I sleep a little better with that. The other thing I want to bring to point out in my report, I am a member of an ethics task force. The GFOA is working on an updated code of ethics for the organization. The current one has been around forever, and it's on parchment, and it isn't really contemporary. And I mean, it's so long that it's not really user friendly. So the code of ethics, I think we have a draft. We're going to bring it to the board meeting this week. And when it gets adopted, I'll get you guys a copy of it. I'd like you to take a look at it and tell me what you think about it. It primarily focuses on the finance aspects, but it's not solely finance. It deals with ethical behavior and treatment of individuals and communities, as well as creating an environment of trustworthiness. It actually is a very interesting document. So when we get it formally adopted, I'll get you guys a copy of it to look at.
So you're helping write this new one.
Yeah, I'm one of the task force members, yeah.
Were you around when they wrote the first one up on parchment?
No, I think I was from like probably the 20s.
Okay.
I mean, it is really old.
All right. Anything for Mr. Nicholson?
Not that old.
All right, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. I've only got a couple things outside the report. The design loan for the wastewater plant upgrades process is still going through review at the EPA. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I spoke with her this morning, and everything seems to be going along fine. It's just going through the process is what she told me. There's no hiccups or holdups or anything. It's just going to be a little bit while longer before they can make a decision on that. The booster pump station project, we discussed a little while back to get the third booster station pump upgraded, is scheduled for March 11th. So once that goes in, that project will be complete. All 3 pumps will be less than 7 months old, which would be really nice. Serves the whole high pressure zone of our system. And the last thing I have is our billing clerk position is open now. The billing clerk we had resigned last Friday, so that position is now posted and will be open until April 5th. Looking to fill that job. So outside of that, I don't have anything else. If there's any questions.
Anything for Chris? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris.
Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and start with the street committee report, as that captures most of what I was going to talk about. First thing we talked about was Oak Meadow Drive. The survey had been delayed due to weather. I can't survey when snow's on the ground, but we did go ahead and get that done last week. So design is in progress on that. Looks like we'll probably be ready to bid that project out by the end of March, and then open near the beginning of, or the end of April. Is the current plan. We'll have a cost estimate, an updated cost estimate as soon as we can, depending on whether we have to go in the roadway or if we can get away with getting in the grass, which will make it a lot cheaper, but we'll get that out as soon as we get information on that. Next item we talked about is the Pataskala Safe Travel Plan. That is ready to bid. I actually have a resolution on tonight, 2019-019, to put that out to bid. Cost estimate on that is right around $130,000, and we'll be ready to bid next Thursday, providing passing of that resolution. Next item we talked about was the 2019 ramp. There's also a resolution on tonight's agenda for bidding that project out. We will be ready for that as well next Thursday. Cost estimate on that one is, for the base bid, is $705,000, a little bit more than we had originally budgeted, but as coordinated with the street committee, we thought that was the appropriate way to go. There are 2 alternates on that. Hopeful that bids come in cheap on that so that we can get a couple of those alternates done as well. We also talked about traffic signals. As we know, we have the Broad Street corridor timing, that project's already been authorized. We are actually waiting to do traffic counts on that. We have the same engineer looking at doing the intersection study citywide. Expect a proposal on that here in about the next 2 weeks. Ideally, we can save some money if we go with that same engineer by having all the traffic counts done at one time. Again, save some money on that. We talked a little bit about drainage, primarily the Glenbrook subdivision where there was some flooding of the retention basin in Citizens Park. Looking at options to, there's 2 ponds in series, and looking at a way to put an outlet structure on the first pond to relieve that flooding. So we'll coordinate that more with the Streets Committee. We did talk about impact fees. That's something Mr. Fulton and I have discussed for some time now, but haven't had the chance to get that in place. Hall will be helping us out with seeing what other communities have done and trying to write some legislation to get impact fees for development in place. Other business that we talked about, I provided a spreadsheet that estimated the carryover balance from last year, or excuse me, the surplus carryover balance from last year and the potential needs and ways that we could use roughly half of that carryover balance for this year. Be happy to provide that if the rest of council would like to see that, and I see a nod, so I will go ahead and plan to provide that. There's presented the CIP map, the Public Service Department CIP map, where we have from 2009 to 2018 on a nice map with color-coded and number-coded all the projects that we've done in the past 10 years. I will provide a PDF of that to council here in the next couple days once that is completely finalized. Talked a little bit about the Taylor Road Trail, which I've got an update on that from ODOT. Looks like that will recommence in May. Obviously, we need to wait for the asphalt plants to open back up to be able to do the final course of asphalt. Once they get back out there, that should take roughly 30 days to complete. Mink Street, got an update from ODOT on that one. They're planning to be back out March 18th. Working with ODOT to get public notice of that out. Their PIO will put something out. We'll mirror that on our social media. They are also, the contractor will be putting out flyers to all the affected residents, and we will also put out our message boards roughly 1 week prior. Again, that is March 18th that they plan to start that back up, and it'll close Mink Street from Cleveland Road to Havens Corners Road approximately. That was everything we discussed on the street committee. The only other things I have to add, I do have another resolution on for tonight to accept the Hazelwood Section 5 Part 1 subdivision. They have met all the requirements necessary for that. And finally, I'll have another proposal, engineering proposal for a study of the Taylor Road drainage project. That is where Taylor Road floods at Berry Road. We do have in the budget for this year to do that study and potentially design. So I'm looking for a proposal on that here in the next couple weeks. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Alan, on the notification from ODOT, we had the bridge kerfuffle a couple of weeks ago where they, sorry, it's me. Apologize. Where they said, oh, we're going to build a new bridge or something, and they didn't. How do we get on their list of, we should be, but how do we make sure we're on the list so we don't have that happen again?
We've talked to them about that. Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of pieces and parts to ODOT, and the people that we're in regular contact with do notify us and stay in coordination and communication with us. That was kind of a random one where we don't deal with the bridge department nearly so much, and I think that was the reason for that, and we have talked to them.
Yeah, and I was going to say the superintendent on the project has agreed to send Alan the communication directly.
Okay.
So we'll get it.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Thanks.
Andy?
Yeah, your Mink Street closure, what's the duration? Do you know what the duration is offhand?
I do not.
Yep, I'm sure ODOT, when they notified you, if you'd send that out to us,
Will do.
I'd like to know at least that.
Shelley's still the contractor on that?
Yes.
Okay. We got plenty of salt?
Yes, we're actually getting ready to order the rest of our contract, which should nearly fill up the barns. And then we'll have, we will have some budget left over if we need to get some this fall as well.
So the scenario, the resolution, if it passes tonight for the ramp, it'll go to bid. We'll accept the bids. What's the timeline then that, are we starting earlier again? Are we starting
advertise
earlier?
March 14th, open April, looking at the wrong project, April 9th is what we have scheduled for opening. We could potentially award at the April 15th council meeting and begins construction middle of May, ideally.
Did you have something, Tim?
I do.
Okay.
I have a question about the impact fees.
Yes.
Some of it has to do with what was spoken about earlier. As you and Scott are looking at impact fees, some of them just have to do with some basic questions that aren't necessarily related to Hunter's Crossing. But the first one is, when you look at impact fees, do you look at buying the land if that is necessary? Or what's the term I'm searching for?
Right away.
Right away, yeah. Right away acquisition. Is that included in impact fees? And then my follow-up would be, was it included? I tried to look at the stuff we were given, but frankly, I didn't look at it until today, and it was jumbly in my brain.
Honestly, we haven't really made it that far into vetting out the details of that to know if it should be. It probably would be definitely something to consider. On this one, being that it's just a turn lane, it's doubtful that we would need any additional right-of-way.
Okay. The next follow-up to that would be, in her presentation, Ms. Klima talked about her client picking up all of the impact fee. What it looked like they were picking up was their portion of the impact fee, or basically it looks like an impact fee is anything that's going in, a dollar amount is calculated, and then it goes through a number crunching machine, and it spits out a number, and that's what the impact fee is for a developer that impacts a large intersection. Does that sound right?
It's fairly simple. The way that we structured it, or potentially will structure it, is that we know the existing amount of traffic at an intersection, and then it's per the traffic study, we know how much traffic's being added. So we take that percentage that's being added and then apply that as their percentage of the proposed improvements to that intersection.
Okay. I mean, there's got to be a calculation, a number calculation in there someplace. With that said, and without holding you too much to it, we don't have an impact fee. So I saw you say, yeah, this kind of looks good to me, and I respect your professionalism and your experience, both of you. So, I mean, do you anticipate that the impact fee as it is designed in this instance is what it will look like finally? Or do you think, because you just said that right-of-way wasn't included in there and you had to look at it. So do you think there'll be minor tweaks, or?
What was provided was based on the discussion that me and Ms. Klima had. So this is what I do anticipate at least the foundation for our impact fee to be.
And then a last question is, 2 school districts in that we touch or we influence recently went through questions of improving intersections as a result of an influx of cars to sites that they were building on. One of them budgeted to totally redo an intersection, and then we had discussions with another one, and we know where that went. And I don't know how any of that's going to end up, but is there any thought that, number one, those are huge, right? Possibly much bigger than a development, of a housing development. Is there any thought that we would ask that an intersection be improved as part of, instead of just a piece?
I guess that's something we would have to discuss. The basis of what we think might be a good way to go, at least, is this method where they would pay a percentage. That's certainly something to consider and discuss as we move forward with that conversation.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So Alan, so we got a cost estimate. I don't know if you've seen this, where it details what work would be done.
I saw the overall cost estimate, the bottom line value.
This is, I don't know if we have another copy of that. I have my copy. I don't think there's any, I don't know.
did not print mine separately.
Yeah, it's what I see is it's for a northbound to westbound left turn lane on Mink Road. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
That's it.
Correct.
And it's $100,000 and some odd thousand.
Correct.
So that's all that this is going to do.
That was per the recommendation of the traffic study, yes.
Okay. It's not going to do anything with,
Both intersections are not.
Just a traffic impact study looks at the two adjacent intersections. I believe the adjacent intersections on this were, is that Meadow Way and then Mink and Summit. So Meadow Way is the Summit Glen subdivision, is the nearest intersection to the west.
Lincoln's,
That's just a T intersection.
Is it Mink and Refugee?
Thank you.
Refugee and Summit Glen, excuse me.
okay, I was,
yeah, that's just a T. Okay,
Turn lane only.
right. Okay. But this isn't an impact fee. This is just, from my understanding, from what Ms. Klima said, this is just an offer by the Hunters Crossing Development folks to pay for this infrastructure, specifically a northbound to westbound left turn lane.
They would pay that percentage of that. So effectively, that's what we're looking to base our impact fee off of, is that same methodology.
Yeah, because this 100,000, I don't think would.
Correct. They would pay roughly half of it.
So instead of,
Less.
they
So
pay 50,000 instead of 100,000.
Correct.
Okay. And what's the 50% based on?
That cost estimate of 100,000. So that's that.
No,
percentage.
how'd you get to 50%?
They took we know the existing traffic. They took their added traffic
Okay.
and figured that was a 50% increase, so they would pay 50% of the improvements.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, thanks.
Walter?
I'm going to comment about Mr. Hickens' comment. I think that this is an excellent way to help with developments that may or may not trigger traffic improvements. The impact themselves may be a percentage of an impact on an intersection that may not actually take it to the next level of service or reduce it, well, however you want to look at it, reduce its level of service. So that you may have a development or even two developments occur in an area that the adjacent intersections they don't quite meet the threshold. And then the third one would have to pay for all of it. You know, this seems to be a fair way, in my mind, at least. It certainly would be a fair way, in my opinion, as you look at either school improvements, business improvements, whatever, that are going to increase traffic to an area that is debatable whether they're fully responsible for all the traffic, but certainly is not debatable that they'll be responsible for some of it. So I think, as Mr. Higgins said, we've got school districts that this would be a good way, a fair way of having the help from those school districts or even from large businesses when they come into an area, so they're not saddled 100% with the improvement.
If we adopted that.
If there was through discussion, obviously, as Alan is saying, there's a lot of work to be done to see how other communities are handling it. But I think this is a good way of looking forward, in my opinion.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else?
That's all.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. One addition to the Planning and Zoning Commission section of my report, that would be application ZON 19003. That is request of approval of a preliminary plan for a 211-lot planned development district subdivision called Sage Point. This is on the northeast corner of Cleveland and Summit across from the Glenbrook subdivision. Because this is a planned development district request, it's going from the R87 district to the planned development district. It will appear before council for approval. This is going to the Planning and Zoning Commission this Wednesday for consideration. Once the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation, it will move on and we'll schedule a public hearing before council. Has to be at least 30 days following the decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The next one is the comprehensive plan. We met with the steering committee on February 28th to discuss the feedback we received from the public hearing and then the online portion that we had out for approximately 1 month to get some feedback. So we discussed the feedback, made some tweaks based upon that feedback that we'll get over to OHM so they can update the plan appropriately. We also plan to meet at the beginning half of April to review other portions of the plan to get this to a point that, excuse me, the steering committee is comfortable that we can move it on to get another public hearing to get additional feedback based upon the revisions to the draft plan. And the last item I wanted to highlight is ordinance 2018-4334. This is a rezoning request that will appear before City Council for a public hearing on April 1st. This portion is rezoning of approximately 4.85 acre piece of property in conjunction with the larger overall subdivision. So this portion of the property is zoned general business. The plan is to rezone it to R10 to match the rest of the subdivision. So there is 22 lots proposed in this rezone portion. The overall proposal is for 153 single-family lots. I know Ms. Hoskinson passed out the information based for the public hearing. Not included with that was the traffic study, and I printed out a copy for everybody and put it on your dais. It says Carpenter Marty in the top left-hand corner, I believe. So I wanted to make sure that everybody on council had a copy of that to review. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Scott?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I got a couple. First one is on, since that was the last one you talked about, this 218-4334 will be coming to us to rezone business to, that's okay, to
Point
R.
of order. You talking about 2018-4334. Do you mean 2019?
2019.
Well, I just was wondering if this was something I had not heard about for all last year. Just curious, sorry. Sorry.
It's okay. So that is currently zoned as business. They want to move it to R87.
R10.
R10. Okay.
Can you mention where that's located?
That's located directly west of the settlement.
And that's this Carpenter Marty thing that we got?
Yes, that's a traffic study that was presented in conjunction with that. It was not included in the public materials that were handed out for the public hearing. So I was able to track that down and wanted to get everybody a copy.
Okay.
Anything else for Scott? Yes.
Yep, I got another one, really quick. I think perhaps you and Mr. King have talked about in visiting the housing development that went in on Broad Street. I stopped in, you happened to not be there, but the clerk was very helpful. Kudos to him. And something surprised me, and it was that there was a significant number of twin singles in there. I was surprised that I had not seen that because that's something that I've been talking about wrestling with. And kind of was kicking myself that it got past me, but it turns out it didn't because it never came to us.
That's correct.
So what I was hoping to do, I've had discussions with you in the past of possibly changing square footage requirements or taking other measures when it comes to developments. One of the things that I had kind of envisioned was being a gatekeeper or at least a vocal person in those and kind of taking them one at a time. However, there are instances where council's not going to get to hear about those. And I think, I guess my kind of bug in your guys' ear would be, if that is coming down the line, anything you can let us know about is much appreciated. Because, that one, I was like, all of a sudden, went back and looked, and it turns out that there are a significant number of what I would call twin singles, multi-family units, I guess is how the technical term goes. But I wouldn't want, and the reason that we didn't hear about it was because there was no zoning change associated with it.
That's correct.
And I understand all that, and I understand how it's supposed to work, but, if in the end, I'm worried, or I want to keep an eye on that possible using of space that is correctly zoned, and having people put in twin singles or apartments, or what, apartments wouldn't work, but anything you guys can do to let us know if those are in the pipeline. And some of that may be in the pipeline, and you may have told us about it in theory, but sometimes it goes over my head. So I would be forever grateful if the administration would
Yeah,
continue to
and
let us know about
Mr.
stuff like
Fulton and I have had an opportunity to talk about how, with updating council through his report of developments that are coming, whether they're going to come to council or not, updating council through his report to do that.
And
I'm sorry.
As part of my report, I'll make it very clear that this is moving forward, this will go to council, this is moving forward, this will not go to council. This was a unique situation. It was rezoned to a planned development district probably about 15 years
Right,
ago.
right.
That district has since expired, so it turned into a planned district with no plan. So they had to go through the subdivision review process, but because there was no rezoning involved, it just stayed with planning commission.
And I respect those people too. I mean, sometimes I think they look at what the law says can go there or what our regs say can go there. But I think they ask questions as well. So I don't want to mean that I don't. I just think all levels should be working together to, I have no problem contacting them if I have a question too.
So this is Broadmoor?
Mhm.
So that's a mix of single family and duplexes?
Correct.
Again, zoning confuses me. So how do you get that? I mean, to me, it's like multifamily is one thing and single family is another. How do you get a zoning district that has both? And then if it does, then why bother to zone it?
With a planned district, if you have like an R10 or an R87, all the provisions for that are in the code and it's all written out. With a planned district, it allows flexibility for the developer that they can propose whatever they like. So if they say it's a mix of duplexes and single-family homes, if the planning commission approves it, then it's approved. So they can deviate from the traditional sections of the code with whatever they propose. If it's approved, it's approved.
So our planning and zoning commission would disclose to them that this was going to be duplexes and single family, and they went ahead and approved it.
That is correct.
Thanks. Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Scott, just one quick question on this public hearing for April 1st. I read through the report, and it sounds like the city is actually asking for this to be, this is how the report at least came across to me, that the city is actually asking for this rezoning so that there could be a second entrance. Was there not a second entrance required for the settlement when it was initially planned? I mean, when we initially approved that?
What happened is this was originally done, I want to say late 90s, early 2000. And this western side of the settlement at the northern portion had multifamily. Then there was a block of professional research office, and then the existing block of general business along Broad Street. It was never done as a planned development district, so those lines were arbitrarily drawn on the map. Had it been done as a planned development district, there was some semblance of how this was all laid out. Over the years, as the settlement expanded west, those zoning districts turned into R10. So it's now all R10 except for this general business portion. In the original plan, they did have an access point onto Broad Street. However, when working with the developer, we told them that we would like to see an access point onto Broad. As originally proposed, it was going to funnel arguably 90% of its traffic down Isaac Tharp. No, Enos Loomis. It was one street that we're going to funnel about 90% of their traffic, and right now it's a dead-end substreet.
Probably John Reese.
It was...
All of it would have went down John Reese, but I think it's Alonzo Palmer.
Alonzo Palmer was in
Most of it would come down.
east-west, so it's a stub street now. It was going to funnel all that traffic on what is a substreet now to they're getting 90% of the traffic. The city, we didn't feel that was appropriate, and we said we'd like to see a connection to Broad Street to help alleviate some of that traffic flow. There was discussions with that. They originally proposed to do a planned development district. When they decided to actually do the connection, provide the traffic study, they proposed to rezone that portion from the general business district to the R10 district to help with their connection.
Okay, so I guess my other side of the question was, as a general business, they were not required to connect between the subdivision, the R10, what was the, essentially the balance of the R10, to Broad Street. Is that correct? Through the business district.
We had asked them to do that.
They were going to do that regardless whether it was GB or whether it was R10.
Originally, as proposed, they were not going to do it.
That's what I guess I'm asking, is it wasn't a requirement from the city to have them make that connection, therefore they only had essentially the connection through John Reese and through essentially Oak Meadow on the backside. That was their only connections to Broad Street, is that correct?
Correct. As
And that was
originally
approved,
proposed.
and that had been approved originally with the settlement plan.
The settlement, they had plans, but it was never a plan district, so it was never really approved. That was conceptual. Had it been a plan district, that would have shown on the plans that this connection is required. Because it wasn't a plan district, it was essentially conceptual at that time.
So would there be also other city ordinances that would not allow them to develop the rest of this R10 without a second connection, whether it be an emergency connection, whether it be a public connection? We have other, limitations on roadway lengths that you can't have anything, I'm not going to quote it because I don't know it offhand, but there are limitations in the length of a cul-de-sac, essentially.
That is correct.
So by rezoning this, this is allowing them, I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand your staff report. We're asking them to do it, but they have to do it anyhow if they want to develop this area. Is that correct?
It's not required by code. From a staff standpoint, it made sense instead of dumping 90% of the traffic on one street. And originally, with the plan district they proposed, there was no emergency access for the fire department either. So the staff said, you need to make this connection. If you choose to move on to planning commission and ultimately council without doing this, you may do so. But from a staff standpoint, we feel the connection is appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Scott? All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Scott.
Lanier.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to highlight a few things in my report. First off, we have completed the hiring process for the 2 seasonal maintenance positions. We've hired Brian Puskak and Logan Cochran. I believe they will be exceptional employees for us in the maintenance side to get our parks back into the aesthetic look that they should be. So they're planned to start May 18th. March 18th. Next thing on my list is the Foundation Park Holding Tank project. I received the final quote from the electrician today. We're looking to start that project the 3rd week of March. We're under budget by just $34, but we are under budget for that project. So the project will be completed before soccer season, so we're good there. Third thing, I would like to give an update on the community garden project and also the educational classes. We've had 3 classes conducted so far, 58 general public attendees. Of 27 of the 58 have attended more than 1 class. 12 of the 58 have attended all 3, and 18 of the 58 said they were from Pataskala. So we do have a lot of people coming from outside of our jurisdiction attending these classes in hopes that we can build something in the future for our residents. Last thing on my list, last Thursday, I met with Rich Campitelli with the Licking Park District. We walked his 13 acres on Mill Street, and we also walked our 40 acres back there just to figure out a way how we can partner with them to possibly maybe have trail linkages, how we can place programs onto their property in conjunction with ours. Even though it's not designated park property, we still wanted to brainstorm some things, how we could team up for grants. So they were on board with partnering with us, spending some money over the next 5 years. So we'll be linking up more throughout the year, and I'll probably be bringing more information to you as we go. And that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Lanier?
I'll be interested to see how those link up, because I know where ours is, but I don't know where theirs is. So I'll be interested to see the next step.
Can I add something real quick? A big thing with their property is most of their 13 acres follows the Muddy Fork. A huge piece of their property abuts up against farmers. So he recommended that he would go to those farmers to generate some, right-of-way or some some area where he could use to be able to access our property. So he is going to do the legwork and then bring that information to me.
Yes, sir.
Lanier, I know there's been a lot of discussion about dog parks
Yeah.
in the city. Were you able to bring that up to him as possibility on the Licking County Parks District land?
There's no way to put a dog park on his property. There's not enough, I guess, acreage per se, because all of their acreage literally follows the Muddy Fork. And you wouldn't have an acre, you wouldn't have half of an acre where you have the potential for the creek to basically wash it away.
So, can I follow up? So they are currently farming all of their property, right? They have all their property out for contract for farming, correct?
No, they don't have any farm. Their farm. They don't have any farmland. So the property that is directly next to theirs is all farmed out, and that we basically walked a piece of that property just to only access we had that was safe access from the Muddy Fork.
Okay, I must be thinking about a different parcel. So I'll get some more information for you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Chief Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I was asked to touch on the situation with the parks and going around the barricade there halfway through. In the last 2 years, we've actually caught 4 people. 2 of those are actually because Lanier caught them, and so we
Need deputize.
Deputy, yes,
We're
Deputy
going through
Marshal
the process
Lanier.
to bring the last one, which was 2 weeks ago now, through the mayor's court system. I guess my only suggestion would be, I mean, out of 4 that we caught is probably very, very small percentage of the people that actually go around the fence, the gate. I guess I would suggest maybe we reinforce that somehow, or work on doing something like that to make it less appealing for people to cut through there. That's all I have. You have to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything for Bruce? All right. Committee chair reports. Yes, sir.
I got one. On February 27th, the Utility Committee met. We had a long discussion about several items, but one of them is on tonight, and I'll probably focus on that a little more than anything else. We spoke a little bit about the Mill Street water line project, and that is a replacement of an old 6-inch line on Mill Street, if you would, between, help me out, Chris, 310 and Township.
Jefferson.
Or I'm sorry. It would affect Jefferson, George, and Benton. And it would probably be a one-day closure. But given the way that the system has been built up, or the pressure in the system is now, it would probably not, knock wood, involve a boil alert or something like that. So I always say before I start these, Andy, feel free to raise your hand and jump in if I miss something. So, and I would say the same to Tommy, but he's not here. So, the next item up was we continue to look at the varying things we can do to tweak the rate structure for the citizens on our system. We periodically get information from the finance office and from the administration and ask questions, and then Chris goes back and he comes back with some more drafts. I think we're focused on making sure, if council will remember, at the end of the budget year, there's always 4 sloping lines down, or roughly, on the utility side. And I think our goal in the end is to try to level those out some. We want to look at the carryover and make sure that that's appropriate. But at the same time, we know that I think we're all cognizant of the fact that we don't want we want to roll it out in a way that doesn't affect the citizens negatively or too negatively, and no sticker shock. We're still a ways away from, or at least a meeting away from, I think, settling on some more tight numbers and some more and a plan. And it would not be this year anyway. It would be implemented next year. So I'm happy to meet with citizens or council members if you want to ask where we are with that. I can talk more about it, but this is just kind of a thumbnail sketch. The last thing we spent much more time on, and I want to touch on tonight because we're going to discuss it tonight, is the biosolids program. And I might just turn this over, well, let me take a crack at it. So as council well knows, the city takes a lot of its processed biosolids and has been applying it to fields. And that's been a source of money savings for the city. It doesn't get interred in a landfill, which is good for the environment, and we don't pay landfill costs. And so historically, we have had the ability to apply it to an EPA-approved field. With the departure both of the main person in-house that was responsible for applying it and plowing it in, and the main person to record it and report to the EPA, which was Nathan, Chris began to see that he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to continue with that program this year. At the EPA's suggestion, he reached out to a company, and that company's name is? AgriSludge. And AgriSludge will, if we want, haul it to a landfill, and they quoted us a price for that. And they will also land apply it. If you want to throw a little more grist in the mill or wrench in the works, we needed to confirm with the farmer who owned the field that indeed he was willing to still participate in the program. My kudos to Mr. Walters, who reached out to him, and then to Chris, who followed up. And I believe that is something that he is amenable to. We then had a round robin amongst the three members of the utility committee, and we made some suggested changes to the AgriSludge contract, which is the contract that's in front of council tonight. We talked about, you want to talk about the changes real quick? They were not many. They were
some of the changes, the original contract said approximately 1,000 wet tons a year. We've averaged right around 870, so we changed that to say up to 1,000 wet tons a year. And then the other thing we added was a fee for just hauling the product to the field and not doing the actual farm work, the application of the product. He gave us a lower price for that, came in at $15 a wet ton.
Ultimately, I think the utility committee's goal is to, and the administration's as well, is to kind of pull that back in-house and keep doing it the way we were always doing it, because it realizes a savings on two sides, in that you apply it yourself and you also don't pay somebody to haul it to a landfill, where you also pay a fee to inter it. But I think this contract, we did not take a vote on it because we still had, those changes hadn't been made yet. Chris had to check on it. I understand Brian has reviewed it, and we can talk about that as it comes up tonight, but I want council that's here tonight to know we ran this through the mill pretty well, and I feel comfortable with it the way it is. I'm interested in any discussion that happens tonight. So, go ahead, Andy, with him.
I just wanted to make another quick comment. Chris, thank you very much for your expediting this so quickly through the process. I know the gentleman from AgriSludge was on vacation, so that you got anything done with someone on vacation is good for you. The second part I would say is we're looking into other fields to get EPA certified, so we can have multiple choices to take the material, the product, and I think that's also beneficial. And then, Chris, I think your attitude of learning how to do this with your personnel, your new people, whomever you can have learn how to do this to take the place of where we were saving some money, I think that's exceptional. So I think having AgriSludge help us. Last point I've got to make is I'll have to recuse myself from voting on this tonight, so we won't have a quorum on this tonight.
That's right.
Unfortunately, and I apologize, I can't vote on this. So I have a conflict. I have a family member who works for AgriSludge. So unfortunately, that's going to put a wrench in. I just sat here and thought about it. It's going to put a wrench in trying to get this done tonight.
Best laid plans of mice and men.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Chris.
Mr. I guess we have a quorum.
Yeah.
We have a quorum.
You can just abstain
It's a
or what?
resolution, right?
It's a resolution.
Majority of the people are present.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. Okay,
Thank you.
that's- okay,
So
good.
as long as you get a majority from the three.
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't have assumed so
But you
quickly.
should
You're right.
recuse yourself.
I
That's
will,
fine. You
I
have to
will.
Right, but we still have a quorum, he's just not, can't vote on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do have a question about that, because Mr. Mayor, I'm on the Agri Sludge contract, because I feel a little bit like Mr. Hicken and the duplexes down there at Broadmoor. When we spent the money, I think it was $100,000 to build the larger product building, the incentive was that it wasn't gonna, that there would be no more cost associated with the removal of the product, that it was gonna be free. But now, it's not. And I guess, I should have asked, but I didn't realize that the whole program was dependent on the continued employment with the city of 2 individuals. So my question is how special is this knowledge? Can it be acquired in some fashion so we don't have to have a contract with Agri-Sludge? I guess I'm a little confused because I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing, well, we could learn how, we could do it, but we have to have this contract. So I'm confused.
And if I could just, the first part of this is, the reason for the contract is we cannot learn fast enough to get rid of it.
Okay.
And there is a time critical piece to this, and that time critical piece is that the sludge is beginning to pile up on the site, in the expanded storage thing that you spoke of. And we will reach that point before I think the expertise is regained.
Plus, it needs to be applied in the spring.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the time critical portion to that, and this is the ideal time to put it in if we were to, I almost look at this as a stopgap emergency measure.
When is the knowledge going to be acquired,
Well,
roughly?
I wouldn't know I would imagine that this year, this season, we would have the time to learn both how to operate the equipment, the tractor, the GPS tracking that the EPA requires, and that I would be able to acquire the knowledge for the reporting end of it and signing off that we're doing everything fine. So that is definitely the goal, is to use this as a bridge to get us where we need to be to bring it back in-house.
Well, now I feel better about it, because before I thought, we're just.
So basically,
I
just
understand.
1 year.
And there was a time when I thought that too, so
Contract,
I asked the same question in a different kind of way. I just neglected to give you that key piece of information in my report.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Todd, I'll just mention, that was one of the concerns about making it up to 1,000, so we can utilize this contract as much or as little as necessary.
Okay, all right.
Very good.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't hear you say how long the contract was for with them.
The contract is a 2-year contract with the option of picking up 3 individual years after that, if we got that
But
far.
once the information is acquired that you need, do we have to, we're a minimum of 2, right? Like,
No, I believe it can be terminated at
once
any
you're ready,
point.
like 1
Right,
year, you
right.
could do 1 year, you have the knowledge, and then next spring,
Then we can
we can take over.
be the end of that, right?
All right.
We'll bring it back in-house.
That's what I thought
I
you
would,
said.
I would also add that we may still utilize this particular company to move the sludge. When we move it in-house, the truck is very small, it requires like 8 trips. This company can move it very quickly, so we might indeed utilize the contract to get the stuff there and then put it in. Maybe.
Wet time.
I don't know if I can recognize Mr. King.
Sure.
Mr. King?
Thanks. And that's a good point. I see this contract as an a la carte of what we can pick to get it up there, whether it's a mixture of them hauling it and we are applying it at some point, or if they're hauling and applying. So it provides that flexibility to do it. And rewording up to 1,000 wet tons, as Andy said, we can use as much as we want, up to 1,000, or as little as we want. So.
And I think if we open it up to other farmers, some of those farmers may have the capability of hauling.
It is
So
a,
there's plenty of options on the
definitely
table.
an interest. That's
Yep.
absolutely correct.
Very good. Anything else on your report?
Nope. Sorry for the long report, but we talked about a lot.
Quite all right. Any other committee chair reports? Yes, sir.
We had an ag committee. This evening, we had 2 ag applications. One of them, I'm going to make a motion tonight to approve. The other one, I'm going to make a motion to hold until, I guess I'm not going to make a motion. I would ask that it be held until the 18th of March, next meeting. And that was all. We had no comments on either one, other than one was incomplete.
Any other committee chair reports? All right. Moving on to unfinished business. Ordinance 2019-4331 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Walther. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2019-4331. This is the second reading. An ordinance to rezone property located on Refugee Road Southwest, parcel number 063-141-384-00.000, totaling 106.33 plus acres in the city of Pataskala from medium-low density residential R87 zoning classification to the Planned Development District PDD zoning classification.
Discussion? Okay, ordinance 2019-4332 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2019-4332. This is the second reading. An ordinance to amend section 521.11 of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskala and repeal all other ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
Discussion? Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay, got a motion to amend. You have that all written out and ready to go?
I have it somewhat written out, yes.
Okay, would you read that?
I would. A motion to amend that the city would be required to post notice on the property prior to the city taking action to cut grass or cause the grass, or to be, taking action to cause grass to be cut.
Okay, I have a motion on the,
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
get it.
yeah, you got it
I've
written
got
out?
it written down.
He'll give it to you, Kathy. Have a motion to amend. I need a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion on
Have-
the motion to amend.
Mr. Fulton, does that jibe with roughly what that's an additional step, but you don't see any problem with that?
No.
Good.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call on the motion to amend.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walther?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance is amended. On to resolutions. Any desire to take 2019-015 off the table?
Request that remain tabled.
Thank you, sir. Resolution 2019-018, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to advertise, receive, and review bids for construction of the 2019 roadway improvements program known as the RAMP.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walther and seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Hayes?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walther?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-019, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to advertise, receive, and review bids for construction of phases 1 and 2 of the Pataskala Safe Travel Plan.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion? And roll.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walther?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-020, resolution to accept and confirm infrastructure improvements for the Hazelwood Section 5, Part 1 development for public maintenance and operation by the great city of Pataskala.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walther?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-021, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with Hall and Associates, Inc. for the 2019 Pataskala GIS program.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion and roll.
Walther?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-022, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with AgriSludge, Inc. for the Biosolids program.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hickens, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Walter,
I recuse myself, please.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Resolution passes. On to motions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we table the McGowan Agricultural District application.
Have a motion to table the McGowan application.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion?
No discussion.
And roll. On the motion to,
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
okay, that motion has passed. So, a motion to approve the application for an agricultural district submitted by Russell Glenn George Jr.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion? And roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions tonight? Okay, on to additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak on anything that we've discussed tonight? And you have 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Dan Bauer, 287 Summit Glen Road. I think the concern that I spoke with you earlier tripled during this meeting, because if I understood Mr. Fulton correctly, I think there are 2 more developments that are going to be voted upon here in the Licking Heights School District. I just don't know how that school district can possibly keep up with that growth and provide a quality education to the kids in that district. Also, I live where I use the intersection of Summit Road and Broad Street quite frequently. If you happen to be at that intersection when Licking Heights South dismisses, I have often seen school buses and vehicles backed up clear on Broad Street trying to get into that elementary school to pick up kids. I don't think that's a real good plan to have buses and cars on Broad Street. I really want you to consider not only the Licking Heights School District, but also the traffic flow in that area. And that intersection at Broad Street and Summit Road is not the only intersection as you're traveling on Broad Street. Broad Street is just not equipped to handle the normal traffic, much less the work traffic and the school traffic. So I now want you to give consideration to 2 items, and I would like to suggest maybe that the lady representing Licking Heights tonight might have a few words to say, but if not, that's fine. But thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? All right. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Jonathan Bills with DDC Management. I'm actually here as part of the development group that Connie's representing. I'm president of that company. I wasn't able to be at the previous meeting, unfortunately, so I just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you for all the comments that came out of the meeting a couple weeks ago, and that Connie was able to share with me and we're able to work through. Thank you to the city for talking through some of those items with us and helping us understand those concerns. Everything that Connie represented, that's ultimately our group. We want to be a good partner as we move forward and try to figure out how some of those things. I was encouraged by the conversation among council as well as Alan tonight on the impact fee idea, and I know it's not there yet. I don't know that we can call it an impact fee for the road, but the conversation, I don't remember which council member said it, but I found my shoe where you have the first developer and then the second and it doesn't warrant it, and then you're the third and you come in and it warrants it and you get hit with all of it. And I've been developer 1, 2, and 3 in that situation before, and it's not necessarily the most responsible way to grow, but some sort of shared system like's being proposed. That's why we were willing to work and try to come up with what our proportionate share is for that and are willing to move it forward. I got to share this with the Planning Commission. We're excited to be here. It's been a long time coming. We've gone through, I'm not sure how many iterations of the concept plan where we reduced the density, and I know sometimes it's never enough to go down, but we tried to make compromises. We believe in the city. We believe in coming here, and we want to try to find a compromise that has a successful project that all sides can be happy with and we can move forward with. So I just am thankful, appreciate the comments and the ability to try to work through those with everybody and to be able to move forward.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go around the room and start with Mr. Hicken.
I was slightly bolstered by the tornado discussion tonight, and I was also slightly disturbed. But I don't know that, it sounds like the city, we are doing everything we can to maintain them. I appreciate that. I appreciate Mr. Grady coming because he had to answer those questions. I don't know in the end, he says that the county's not moving towards supporting or building or, and he talks about Franklin County did it right. Well, it doesn't help our citizens necessarily. So, yet to be determined, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll talk about it more. That's good enough for me. I've talked enough tonight.
Mr. Barstow?
Well, to reflect on what Mr. Hicken said, yeah, it's nice to know that there's concern. I got the impression that maybe they were taking sort of a la-di-da attitude about this, but apparently they're not. The problem is that this technology is, the tornado sirens is not the wave of the future. So it's sort of something of a relic. But I still think we need to maintain them. People depend on them. And I think we also need to look at ways to inform our citizens of the new technologies that are out there. Mrs. Hayes discussed and mentioned so that we can get that. And I also think the city administration should look into the maintenance contracts on these and get some honest answers about how much longer are tornado sirens going to be viable and when are they going to go to the way of the public telephone booth. So, because I think that's, quite frankly, that's where they're going to end up. Thanks. That's all I have.
Yeah, I would echo that also. I mean, you have an antiquated equipment, pickup truck, something like that. It's not impacting anybody, but this impacts a lot of people, and I get it that there's something out there that's probably going to take its place at some point, but we're not there yet, and I appreciate administration and Alan and your crew doing everything you possibly can to make sure that those are working. I hate to put that any more workload on you, but we're actually talking about saving lives, so I don't take that lightly. I've had conversations with BJ and with Bruce and with Alan. I think we need to get our representative from Southwest Licking Sewer and Water back in here to find out what's going on with the water project. The road continues to be open and closed at inopportune times, and I still feel they're tearing our road up when they load the dirt on the road and put the pipe in and then put the dirt back in. I can feel the difference in the road, and I just want to make sure that I don't even know what the timeline is, but the road continues to get closed down at inopportune times on Havens Corners Road now when school is operating. So I don't know how do we reach out to Mr. Fox and ask him to come to a meeting? Is that what we need to do?
Who are you at?
Issue a summons? Chief, can you do that? Yeah, just kidding. Yes.
You said were you asking Kathy to reach out?
No, I don't know who, when we ask him to come to speak to us and get on the agenda, is it me, is it BJ, is it Kathy?
It's usually the administrator.
Yeah, I can reach out.
Would you please reach out to
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Fox?
try to get him here on March 18th.
Let's get an update, when the project's, how long it's gonna be, if these road closures are gonna continue, do our officers need to assist? Does our street department need to know so we can put up signs? Something. That's, when we did that traffic count on how many cars are on Havens Corners Road, what was that, like 2,000 or 3,000 cars in a week or something? I can't even remember what it was. 17,000 cars in 2 weeks. So major.
A day.
17,000 a day. Okay. I'm tired. I don't have anything else. Mr. Zett, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Mr. Walther?
I just wanted to mention, I noticed in Scott's report about our inspector, our zoning inspector being off for 4 to 6 weeks. So Scott, first of all, if you'll relay to him whatever's happening, I hope he has a speedy recovery. And secondly, I hope you guys have a good plan in place for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I wish you well with that.
Thank you.
Okay? That's all I have.
Hey, put me in a truck. Yeah. Suzanne?
I just want to say I appreciate all the speakers that came in this evening and it's just, I think we're really blessed as a community to be able to sit in a room and all the potential issues, just be able to talk it out and all the suggestions. And I just appreciate the administration and all the things that we're working on that we work so well together. And I look forward to our Main Street update in 2 weeks. So, and motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second. Discussion and roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Hurston.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Put your booster seat away. Hey, did you hear? Dan told me he was
Isaac Dar, Lawrence Paul, and there was like another one that kind of cul-de-sac.
That was my work.
They were looking to do something.
That was